Hello everyone and welcome. It's Alexandra. Thanks for joining me today. I have added a new digital kit to my Etsy store, and with the help of the kit you will be able to create this box that holds 14 strip ticket booklets. All of them are nature themed. Each one of the booklets has a tracing paper cover like the one that you see here. Then it also has the back cover, which is made with some craft cardstock. And you have either 4 strips or 5 strips in each booklet of nature themed tickets that can be bound like how I'm going to show you today into these booklets, or you can also just cut them apart and use them as collage pieces or some labels. I am sure you will be able to find a fun way of using them in your mix. I have also included some really small labels in the kit with the numbers. These ticket booklets turned out great, and I hope you will enjoy creating them as well. So the kit includes 10 pages. 2 of them will have the parts for creating the lid, as well as those tiny number labels that I have mentioned before. Some fun little elements that you can add to your box and decorate it a little bit more. We're also going to do that together. Then there is this background page that you can, if you want to, print in the back of each one of the 7 pages of the ticket strips. And this is how they look like. So this is page number 6 with the mushrooms and another page with some beetles in blue. I really like how the colors turned out here. Let me talk now about the paper. I have printed 2 of these pages, which are intended for creating the box, on cream colored cardstock. It's the cardstock that I usually use for printing out my digitals, especially the mini book ones. So we have here the paper, which is great for printing both on inkjet printers and on laser ones. Here is the weight of the paper. It's either 65 pound or 176 GSM. The color that I use is Milky Way. That's how it's called. The brand is Astro Brights. Then for the back of each one of those ticket strips, I will use some craft cardstock, and it's the same weight of the cardstock as the one that I have just shown you, but from another brand. And I have this one from Joann before they closed, but any craft cardstock will do, whatever you have. Then for printing the tickets, I used thinner paper. The one that I have is from Hammermill. It's a premium color copy paper. It's the white paper. That's why I thought that in the back we definitely needed some kind of background, and I didn't want to leave it just plain white unless you want to use the tickets for gluing down onto the pages of your journals. Then of course you will not need to print the back. And then for the booklet covers, I am using some tracing paper. I have this pad from Hobby Lobby. That's the Master's Touch brand. It has 50 sheets and it's really great. I have had this pad for quite some time and I still have quite a lot of pages left. You are welcome to use maybe acetate instead of the tracing paper, or vellum, or whatever else a brand of tracing paper that you have. It's not that important, but I also like to know which supplies exactly this or that crafter uses, so I thought I'd mention that. Now, besides the various kinds of papers that I am going to use, I will also need a ruler, a craft knife, a self-healing mat, which is currently out of the frame. I'm going to bring it in soon. A pencil could be nice. A hole punch. This hole punch is a 1/4 inch in diameter, but you can also use the larger hole of a crocodile. And I will also need, of course, some glue, maybe some scissors, not sure, but maybe. And we are also going to use a stapler, and we're also going to use the staples for stapling all of the ticket strips sheets together and cutting them at once or in one go, instead of cutting each one of the pages separately. I have covered all of the tools and supplies that we're going to need, so we are ready to begin working on our project. And I think I'm going to start with cutting out the elements for the box and assembling the box, and then we will move on to the tickets. For the sake of saving some time of this tutorial, I'm not going to distress the edges of the elements that I'm going to use for making the box, but if you'd like to use your distress ink, then that's the time. I would distress the outer edges of this element. Make sure that you center this piece on top when you glue it down. Now I am going to cut here and here up to the corners of these orange strips of paper, and then I will flip the paper piece to the opposite side and do the same here and here, the same way, and this is what we see in the back. And now with the scissors, I'm just going to cut next to this tiny flap at an angle. And I will do the same on the opposite side right here. For the next step, I will actually need a scoreboard, and I forgot to mention it in the very beginning. I'm going to place this piece on top of the scoreboard so that one of the grooves of the board is right below the white line, which has no print on it, and it's just plain cream cardstock. So I'm going to line that line with one of the grooves and make sure that you put it straight right along the top edge of the board. Then you flip it and score again right on top of that second cardstock line. And this is what I have so far. And then we need to do the same for the short edges of our future lid. So I'm basically just making sure that this line is above one of the grooves of the board, and I score on top with the bone folder. And this is what we have. I think I pressed too strong here in this corner, but it will not be a problem. Now we have our lid ready to be assembled, and we are first going to reinforce those score lines and fold our paper, and then we are going to add the glue to these flaps and line the two sides of the lid together so that we have a straight and nice looking corner. Actually, before gluing the flaps on the lid, I think it will be better to cut out the lining paper for our lid. And while the lid is flat, we can glue this piece in the center on the inside. And when you glue it down, just make sure that you center it between the fold lines that you can see pretty good in the back of the lid. And this is how it will look like. Now we can also take the label that says contents if you want to, and we can also cut out this little red label and the butterfly and glue them onto the lid like so. After you assemble the lid, I think it will not be very convenient to add the contents if you want to do that. So if you want to stamp anything onto this label, then it might be a good idea to do it now. While the lid is drying, we can get back to our box's base. Let's cut out all the elements that we are going to need for it now. Do not separate between 3 of those pieces. We're going to need them as one whole element. These elements will form the sides of our box's base. Once I cut out everything I could with the craft knife, I can use my scissors and cut along the angled corners of each one of those flaps. And this is what we're going to have for now. I will get back to my scoreboard and we will need to score some lines on this element. So that we can fold our element along those scored lines like this. And next we're going to score the same way on these smaller paper pieces. Apply the glue to each one of the squares and glue them down both to the front side and to the inside of both of these pieces. On the inside, just make sure that you center the square pattern paper between the folds of the cardstock. Now the wider flaps will have to be glued down to this paper element like so. You will line this edge of the paper with the printed line on the wide flap so that the cream colored cardstock line between the 2 printed parts would be visible. This will ensure that you have your box assembled in the straightest way possible. Next, I'm going to take one of the 3, it doesn't matter, orange decorative paper strips, and I'm going to glue it down right in the center of my box's base because it's way easier to center this piece at this point and not when the box is already assembled. Okay, So I will do this. Now I'm ready to apply the glue to the flaps. The two remaining paper strips will be glued down to the sides of our box, and I like to leave just a bit of the paper showing here along the edge. Our box is done. This is how it looks like, and I think it's a good time to move on to creating the ticket strips. I am going to take 7 of my pages and make sure that I straighten them really nicely, and then I will staple all of the sheets together on 3 sides of the paper stack, making sure that I don't have any staples on the side where you see the name of the kit. I'm going to take my long ruler and a craft knife, and I will start by trimming the white border of the paper on this edge. You will also see that I have added the beige outline around the tickets. So I'm going to cut along that beige outline. I'm going to hold the ruler tightly in one place, trying not to move it too much. And then I will check if I have cut through all of the paper layers without moving the ruler. Once I'm sure that I have cut through all the 7 sheets, I will check the result. I think it all looks good. Now I am going to take this whole pile of papers to my paper trimmer, and I'm going to trim along this edge so that I have 8 1/8 from this edge to the cut line that I'm going to create. And you will see that it's barely 1/8 of an inch that we are going to cut off. Probably 1/16 of an inch, I would say. But I'm going to do that. If your paper trimmer is not very sharp, and it might be a problem for you to cut that, then I probably would suggest just to measure 8 1/8 from that edge and cut again using a ruler and a craft knife. And you know what? I'm going to do that just for the sake of showing you how exactly I'm going to deal with that. Okay, this is what we have trimmed. And I'm doing that because we need to make sure that our tickets will fit inside the box. 8 1/8 is just the perfect size for us to be able to fit the ticket strips inside the box and also create the covers for them with that little flap that will accommodate a number label on it as well. Now that we have the long edges trimmed, both on the right hand side and on the left hand side, we can move on to the next edge. And this can be either the bottom or the top edge of the paper. We are going to work slowly and without moving the ruler too much, without pressing too much on the craft knife, and as you can see, going over and over along the cut line a few times till we make sure that we cut through all of it. We are going to cut all of our tickets. And as we cut, what you can do is you can either separate them into designs. There are 7 sheets and 7 designs of those tickets, 7 color schemes, or however you want to call it. So I have cut the first strip off. Now I'm going to cut away this white area of the paper. Once again, just don't rush and make sure that your craft knife is sharp. It will be really helpful for this process. So I've cut off the white paper and I can line up my ruler with the bottom of this ticket strip right along the beige outline. Once again, without pressing too much on the craft knife, as you can see, I am slowly cutting away the next strip of tickets. And again, I can just separate them into groups and continue to the next strip. Make sure that you keep everything lined up as you go. This staple still holds the papers together, but you also need to make sure that they don't move too much as you cut. Here I have 7 stacks of strip tickets, and in each stack I have 9 strips of tickets that I would like to have separated to additional stacks of 4 and 5, and I will do the same for all the rest of the tickets, but we will do that later as we get to assembling them. Right now, I would like to show you the example of what to do next. I have 2 stacks of tickets and I want to create a cover for each one of them. So here I have a strip of craft cardstock that will be used for creating sort of the back cover for our booklet, and I am also going to need that tracing paper strip for creating the front. The tracing paper strip will measure exactly the same as the tickets, and in our case it is 8 1/8 inch long. The width will be determined by the width of your printed tickets. In my case, it is slightly over 1 inch, but I think that 1 inch wide tracing paper strip will be good. So we have covered that. The craft cardstock piece will be the same width as the ticket strip, but it will be 8 1/2 inch long. And that's because we want to wrap the craft cardstock around the edge of the tickets here at the top. We're going to line all the paper edges together like so along this edge, which will be on the outside away from the folded flap. And then while keeping everything together, I'm going to fold the craft cardstock on top and then use a stapler and staple the whole stack of paper layers together from this side, which will be the back of our booklet. Then what I like to do is to flatten the prongs of the paper staple before gluing the flap on top of it. What we also have to do before we glue everything together is we have to use our hole punch and punch out the corners of the tickets and also the areas between them. I think it could be good to do that actually before attaching them to the craft cardstock. So I'm going to punch these tickets as they are, and then I'll punch them before stapling them to the craft cardstock when we work on the tickets that we have here. We have that done. Now we can just fold everything back into its place. Take some glue, apply the glue to the flap, and fold it on top. And we are also going to use the labels. So let me cut just a few labels for now. Here we have one label. It should fit there and look like this. Let's move on to this strip of tickets here. I think that since they're not stapled yet, will be good to hold them together somehow while we punch out the circles between the tickets. And I try to kind of straighten the whole pile before punching out in the next area. Now we can move on to the next step, which will be creating a sandwich from the craft cardstock for the back of our booklet, then the tickets, and of course the tracing paper cover. Okay, everything is lined up. I can fold the paper and add my staple, flatten the prongs, and add the glue and fold the flap on top. I have 2 done and 12 more to go, so I'm going to work on them real fast right now and show you the result. As I was working on some more of these guys, I found another way of assembling the booklets, and I think it will be easier. So once I separate the strips into groups of 4 or 5, I hold the whole pile with my fingers and then first punch the corners of the tickets, which will be close to the fold with the craft cardstock. I punch only there. Then I take the craft cardstock and put it at the bottom, and then I take the tracing paper piece and put on top, and I just try to keep everything as straight as possible without moving everything too much. Now I will use that same staple to keep everything together and even glue the flap down. And now when everything is securely attached together, I can take my punch and punch out the remaining sections between the tickets. This is why I like mass making, because when you are working on the large amount of something, or a relatively large amount of something, you can work out some techniques and efficient ways of assembling things. So here are our ticket strips. That was the last one. And here are all of them inside the box that will be used for storing them. You can make these ticket strips as the full set and give it to a crafty friend as a gift. Then you can just use them as bookmarks in your journals. You can add them to your journals as a decorative touch. You can, as I have previously mentioned, cut them into actual tickets and use them for decorating your journal and creating interest points on the pages of your albums, journals, books, whatever you are working on. And I think they're just really fun to work on and to create. I hope you like this kit. I hope you have a great weekend full of crafting. Take care and talk to you soon. Bye.